January 21, 1998. The United States Virgin Islands. A deed transfers a 71-acre island to a corporate entity for $795,000. The buyer is listed as a trust. The true owner is a financier named Jeffrey Epstein. By then, he had already built a fortune on the margins of Wall Street. He worked with the powerful, the wealthy, and the connected. His firm managed money for billionaires. His clients included a retail magnate and an international conglomerate. What nobody knew was how the money really moved. Epstein structured his wealth through a shell company network. The entities had names like Trafalgar Incorporated and Little St. James Corporation. They held real estate, aircraft, and bank accounts. The island became a private retreat. The jet was a Gulfstream II. Both were assets owned by these corporate fronts. This structure made the flow of cash hard to trace. Banks in the United States and offshore jurisdictions held the deposits. Accounts were opened in the names of trusts and limited partnerships. The signatories were lawyers and accountants. Epstein rarely appeared on any public ledger. The money came from a combination of legitimate management fees and other streams. His firm, J. Epstein & Company, managed assets for clients with net worths above $1 billion. The fees were substantial. He also received payments from a wealthy friend, Leslie Wexner, who gave him power of attorney over his finances. That arrangement alone gave Epstein control over hundreds of millions. Then there were additional transactions, real estate purchases, art acquisitions, and the constant maintenance of his private island. All of these required cash, and the cash came from accounts that were repeatedly shuffled between jurisdictions. By 2005, the financial machine was in full operation. The island had a helipad, a dock, and several structures. The jet had logged thousands of flight hours. The associates were a rotating cast of scientists, politicians, and financiers. They visited the island or flew on the jet as guests. Their names appeared in flight logs and visitor registers. These documents were later subpoenaed. The money paid for everything: the staff, the supplies, the fuel, and the legal fees that would soon mount. In 2006, the investigation began. Detectives in Florida started looking into allegations. The case quickly became about the money, because the prosecutors focused on the financial transactions. They examined the accounts used to pay certain individuals. The plea deal that followed, in 2008, was a legal document that structured everything around financial penalties. Epstein pleaded guilty to minor charges. He served 13 months in a county jail with work release. The terms of the deal were sealed. What was public was a fine and a restitution payment. Behind that plea deal lay a complex negotiation. The prosecutors agreed not to pursue federal charges. In exchange, Epstein admitted to a limited set of state-level offenses. His lawyers argued that the financial payments satisfied any claims. The victims were offered settlements from a trust fund. That trust was itself funded from Epstein's offshore accounts. The money moved from the accounts to the trust, and from the trust to the settlements. Each step was recorded in paper documents that would later be unsealed. Then, in 2018, a Miami Herald investigation reopened the case. Reporters obtained flight logs and deposition transcripts. They published the names of associates and the dates of visits. The money trail became the central question. Who had received payments, and for what? The pressure mounted on the Justice Department to review the 2008 plea deal. Lawyers filed motions to unseal the documents. The court ordered the release of hundreds of pages. Those pages contained bank records, wire transfer receipts, and internal memos from Epstein's corporate entities. By July 2019, Epstein was arrested again. This time, federal prosecutors in New York charged him with conspiracy and trafficking. The indictment did not focus on the money, but the money was the infrastructure. His assets were frozen. The island was put up for sale. The jet was seized. The bank accounts were closed. His lawyers attempted to arrange a bail package based on his remaining wealth. The court denied it. He remained in custody. On August 10, 2019, he died in his cell. The death was ruled a suicide. His estate then became the subject of a civil settlement process. The victims filed claims against the estate. The value of the estate was estimated at over $600 million. The lawyers argued over who should get what. The money was still there, held in trusts, partnerships, and real property. The settlements were paid out over the following years, but the full ledger has never been published. The flight logs and the account statements are still incomplete. The associates have never fully disclosed their transactions. The true ownership of the island before 1998 has never been confirmed. One question remains unanswered on the financial side. The money moved, but the records are sealed.